I don't know if I just smudged my lens in. Alrighty, how are we guys? So today I've got something a little bit different. Rather than any kind of moto vlog or a review on a bike or anything like that, any real kind of adventure, here to talk to you about a specific part of a bike, or specific part of any engine really, and what its role is and how important it is, and really what it does and how it works. Today, I'm focusing on these bad boys, on exhausts in general. So, ignore my dirty as F Triumph, because it's been sitting out in the rain a bit. I'm going to talk to you about exhausts, explain what it does, how much they do it, and the importance of this, that, the other about it. Basically just a run over of Exhaust 101 is what we're going to call it. Exhaust 101. Okay, so question number one, what is it? Well, it's a pipe that leads from your engine and it goes wee out and then poops out the back. What does it do? That is another whole question altogether. The main purpose, and really pretty much one of the only purposes of an exhaust, its main role is to get rid of exhaust gases from the engine post-combustion and exit them somewhere else. That's really its job. It's a tube or some kind of closed environment in which it's used to funnel exhaust gases away. So we all know how engines work, especially four-strokes. You got your bang, squeeze, suck, and blow. Or is it your suck, squeeze, bang, and blow? Whatever order that's in, you know what I'm talking about. Here's an animation on screen. So there's that. Now, what the exhausts do, in my case, there's three of them. This would be much easier on a 4 to be able to actually really tell you what's going on here, but we're going to work with what we've got. So, the exhaust gases come out of the engine, and then what they have to do is then get out the end. How they get out the end is then up to your exhaust pipes and your system. Now, a lot of systems, mostly car systems, will have catalytic converters and various other bits all throughout. Whereas a lot of motorbike engines will not. Some do, but not all do. A lot of them will be the pipes straight through, a couple of bends and maybe a few baffles, out towards the mufflers towards the end. A basic quick rundown on really the whole, how a properly operating exhaust system works, or an optimal operating exhaust system works, is that this is where it's going to get a little bit complicated, so bear with me. When the exhaust is shot out of the engine, is extracted from the engine into the headers, what happens there is it's under a lot of pressure. You're talking like 100 psi or something. There's a lot of pressure coming out through. It happens very, very quickly as well. Now, what you need to do, and there's a lot of maths and science involved in all this sort of such, is you need a diameter tube at the correct size. They can be too big or too small here. The correct size for the amount of... So this is even going to get me all tongue twisted here. You need the correct size pipe for the exhaust pulse to shoot out of the engine into the exhaust system and get all the way straight through up here and out, pretty much with as minimal resistance as possible. If you can get it in one straight shot through, that is the most optimum you can get. Because what happens is, the air that's coming through is, it still has mass to it. It's still a thing. Air is still a thing. There's still stuff there. That's why you can feel wind, and when you flap around and such, you can feel resistance because air acts like a fluid. Don't quote me on my science here, but this is how I'm bro-sciencing this one, guys. Bro-sciencing. Yeah, you know it. So what happens if you have a pipe that is too big or too small is that when the exhaust is coming through, it's going to be slowing all throughout the exhaust as it goes, because it's just part of its resistance. The last thing you want is it to get into a bottleneck and there'll be a choke point, because then what happens is the exhaust gases that are coming through from the engine are going to run into the other ones and then have to force the other ones out. You sticking with me here? Good, because it's kind of complicated, but basically what happens is, if we're thinking of exhaust like we're thinking of a bullet shooting through, the last thing you want is that bullet to then have to collide with another bullet on the way out the barrel, because then that's going to slow the whole system down. What you want is the bullet to be able to shoot straight through all the way out, no resistance. That's an optimal exhaust. Now, unfortunately, most people don't really like, and I can see why, don't really like exhaust just coming straight out the side, being super duper loud and obnoxious, because even though that might work really well, it's not really that great to have in society. So we work with systems like these. They come through, they've got pipes, they bend all around, come up around, and then into mufflers here. Now, there's a big difference between sports exhausts, or track orientated ones, and regular street exhausts. Regular street exhausts will combine quite a few bits and bobs in which to make it more civilized to be around. Last thing you want is starting your engine up at 6 in the morning going to work and you've got a race bike. Your neighbours aren't going to love you very much, and you're probably not going to be keeping them as neighbours for very long. You're going to be shitting a lot of people up the wall. So they use things like mufflers, the kind of metal throughout the pipes and such. There'll be baffles throughout some of them. Some have resonators through. Every exhaust is a little bit different, but basically your street exhaust will be more orientated towards street use, for noise suppression, for emissions, that sort of such, whereas your more sports orientated or your race exhaust will more than likely just be, they might be a straight pipe, they may, they'll be a little bit less complex in that regard. But that's the main difference between the two. Street exhausts for emissions and for noise suppression, whereas sports exhaust, not so much. I don't really give a fuck about that too much. So another important function that exhausts have, especially an optimal working exhaust, is something called scavenging. Now what happens then is when the exhaust is shot out from the engine and starts going out through the tube, because it's actually, you've got mass there, you're creating a positive and a negative pressure somewhere. So the positive pressure is going to be where the air is going. The negative pressure is where it's just been. So what happens when you've got high and a low pressure is they want to equalize. So the low pressure wants to be brought back up and the high pressure wants to go down. Beauty of that is we use that to our advantage. The low pressure, if the air is continually moving away from that, it's got to get it somewhere. So where's it going to get it from? Inside the engine. It's going to pull more exhaust gases out from the engine, which then creates a much cleaner and more efficient system. So if your exhaust is choking everything up, which is symptoms of either a tube that might be too large or too small for your exhaust pipes, if you've got a correct running exhaust, then it should be that system should run really well. If the whole thing is getting choked up and is running really rich or really lean, that's when you've got issues there. I'm not a mechanic, don't quote me on that, but that is another important function of exhausts. Right, now let's talk about another important function of exhausts, is the mufflers themselves. Now there's two main types of passive mufflers that you're going to get. You've got one called a reflective type and one called an absorption type of muffler. Most motorcycles will use an absorption type muffler, which is what these are. Some will use a reflective, but the vast majority will use absorption. There's advantages and disadvantages of the two, pros and cons. For simplicity's sake and lightness, it works better for an absorption method for a bike, but I'm sure there'll be internet mechanics all over, keyboard warriors all over the place that'll know better than I. I'll just give you a quick layout of between the two. So these ones are the absorption method passive exhaust muffler. So basically, you've got the internals of this. Don't know how well you can see that with my awesome drawings, but basically, if we're putting it like this, we've got the poop chute end here, we've got the in structure bit here. Now, if you ever look down an exhaust, it looks pretty much like just a tube, really. You think, what else is there? What else is in there? What's going on? How does it work? So basically what you have is you'll have one pipe running all the way through, which is this guy here, and then surrounding that will be an absorbent material. Now that can be various different materials that different manufacturers will use depending on what they like to use and whatnot, but it'll generally be like some kind of a soft, squishy, absorptive material, and what that does is it will silence the whole, the exhaust gases coming through, so they're not blaringly loud. It's a silencer, is how it works. It channels the air to go up through and has to go through all this as well before it can get out, rather than just going straight through the middle. So this pipe here is all perforated and whatnot, and the exhaust gases will come in, bounce all around in here, get slowed down, and then come out the back pipe. That's a very, very simple method, and it works really well for motorcycles. very, very well. So that's the absorption method, or the absorption muffler. The other one that we've got is called a reflective. Now these are a lot more common in cars. Again, this is a very crude drawing, but if you're looking at, you got your internal pipe and your poop chute out there. Inside the actual muffler itself, there will be ribs, there will be obstacles in the way. So these are internals that will actually cause the exhaust to bounce around. So it has to get around these and then out through. So by doing that, it will slow it down a bit and it will take away a lot of the harshness and the bang, the loud bang. Have you ever heard a vehicle without an exhaust? They're friggin' loud. This is what exhausts are for, people. So what will happen is the exhausters will come in, they'll hit a hard surface and they'll bounce. And they'll bounce again, they'll bounce again, they'll bounce again, they'll bounce again, bounce again, all the way through until they get out. That will make a lot more of a civilized noise. It's a very, very boring noise. You know, thinking any stock vehicle, think about that, just like a regular Toyota Camry or something. That's what they're running, that's why they sound so rubbish. But in terms of, you know, keeping your neighbours happy and everything, they work quite well in conjunction with other materials as well. Very, very basic rundown of the two different types of exhausts there. One more quick thing to touch on. Now, you might see a lot of different exhausts they're orientated very, very differently for many different reasons. A lot of it is for packaging reasons, if they have to fit it around the frame or whatnot. For some of them are specific performance orientated as well. As many different bikes there are, there's going to be that many different exhaust systems out there as well, really. But a basic rundown of how in which they operate and some of the different kinds of exhausts that you're looking at is, I'll give an example with this one. So this is obviously a triple. It works better with 4 just because 4 is a nice even number, but we can soldier on. So a lot of exhausts that you're going to come across they'll go from in this case, a 3 tubes into a 1 tube and then split off into a 2 tube. So it goes 3, 1 to 2. Bear with me here. There's a reason for this. Some exhausts also you find will go a 3 into 1 straight at the end. They might go 3, 2, 1. There's lots of different ways to do it, depending on how many cylinders you're going to have. You see some 4-cylinder ones will have 4 into 1, or 4 into 2 into 1, 4 into 1 into 2. Many different types. There's reasons for this. They can get a little bit complicated, but the basic synopsis of it is, if you've got a straight through exhaust, an example of a 3 into 1, you'll be looking at a higher peak torque curve in that. So you'll get a higher quick jump in power. So if you're thinking for, say you want to do straight line speed, you want to do drag racing, that kind of thing, you'll get a much quicker and sharper torque curve by using a straight through exhaust, like a 4 into 1 or a 3 into 1. The difference you get when you're going from a 3 into a 1 into a 2, or 4 into a 1 into a 2, or vice versa, really then what that will do is you'll get less of a higher peak curve, high torque curve, but you'll get more even across the board. So if you're doing things like track racing and such like that, where you need power across the board, not just necessarily in one big spike, then those are the systems that will probably work a little bit better for you. Again, don't quote me on this, in that you're definitely going to run it there and buy a brand new exhaust system on just what I've said. This is just from the information I've gathered out there, but it seems to kind of check out and make sense. So there we have it, guys. There's a quick exhaust 101 little video that I've just put together. I'm still learning about all this sort of stuff as well, so there's probably heaps I've left out. There's probably heaps I got wrong in there too, really, but let me know what you think. Did you like this kind of video? Did you want to see more of this type of video? Did you learn something from this? Is there something I fucked up on? There's more than likely something I fucked up on. Please let me know. Yeah. Let me know what you want to see next as well. I'll try my hardest to do some more stuff via requests. But hopefully you got something out of this, and if you did, ace. If not, that's okay too. But it is what it is. I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of this beautiful sunny day in Melbourne. If you're from Melbourne, you can probably tell where I'm right now. I'm on Yarra Bend Boulevard. It's sort of like almost a little racetrack just out of the city here in Melbourne. It's fantastic. A lot of guys meet up here. It's a great little spot. And it's got beautiful views of the city as well. Oh, look at it all, and pretty bushland and stuff. Yeah, it's a great little area. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now. Hooroo, Wolfie G15.